Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 News. Just checked into our hotel here, but absolutely had to make a video discussing the incredible qualifying session we have just witnessed in Singapore. The big question was overnight, would Red Bull get their act together for the Saturday qualifying session after surprisingly lacking pace on the Friday? FP3 looked pretty good, qualifying another story entirely. Both Red Bulls out in Q2, out-qualified by Liam Lawson in an AlphaTauri. What is going on with Verstappen with penalties potentially to follow as well after 3 separate incidents? An absolute disastrous day for him. Our Rebel now midfield team? Definitely not. Can Max possibly win around Singapore from that far away given the quality of drivers in front of him? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new as always. So man, what a crazy day this was. Practice was very interesting. Now Verstappen wasn't top 3 in practice, and it was the first time I think since Hungary that the Red Bulls had not led any session of practice. But in Hungary, we know what happened. Hamilton got pole, but Verstappen won by like 30 or so seconds. So it was not exactly guaranteed. Now Verstappen wasn't happy with the upshifts. We'll say that the only car that seems to have these issues is the Red Bull. Something with their gearbox. There's rumours that the way they design their car means that they have to have a really small gearbox, which creates potential issues in terms of reliability, shall we say. So Verstappen does have these issues from time to time and was drifting through the corners, didn't feel like the balance was great. And then Toby Gruner says here from AIM US that they were effectively trying to lower the car. And as soon as I heard this, I was like, damn, that's a pretty last-ditch attempt from Red Bull, right? If you're going into qualifying and you've decided, you know what, we don't have the performance as it stands, we've got to try and lower the car to the ground to get more downforce. That creates risks with the bumps on the track and with other things as well. And, you know, in qualifying, we'll see if it worked out for them. But as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, it's a pretty last-ditch effort from Red Bull to try and find a way to actually find pole position. And of course, that's not what occurred. So qualifying begins, and it was crazy, right? I mean, even Q1 was insane because the track was evolving so much towards the end of this session. Snowder was P1, Magnussen and like Hulkenberg were P2, P3, and I was like, are the Haas good or are the Haas not good? We know the Haas is quite a good quali car, and well, we'll see what happens in the race tomorrow. We'll get into Q3 in a second, and then Stroll bins it in the wall. I in some sense, can't blame him because he was pushing absolute flat out. I'm not sure he'd have made it through anyway, to be fair, but he was on the absolute limit, caught a bit of a bump around the final corner, straight into the wall. Big impact as well. We got to see the onboard completely destroyed the car, and he just gets out perfectly fine. Just goes to show how good the safety of these machines is now, especially for impacts like that. Like side-on impacts, maybe not so good, especially other cars and stuff like T-boning impacts. There are still fatalities when those things occur, but it's so rare we get a fatality in an incident like this. And Stroll just got out the car and seems okay. I know he's at the medical centre, but as it stands, he seems okay. And Norris actually did quite well to even avoid a collision here because he came around the final corner, had to get out the way of Stroll. So yeah, lucky that this wasn't worse than it was. But actually, if he'd have crashed a few seconds later, or if the red flag hadn't dropped immediately, Hamilton might have been out because he was P14 actually after this, and probably other drivers were improving. He might have improved himself as well, but if the red flag drops before Hamilton can improve, then he's out. So it saved Hamilton, but it screwed over Piastri, right? So Piastri got unfortunate here because he was on a lap, probably would have been good enough, right? Because Norris was very quick. But yeah, Q1 was insane. Bottas, Piastri, Sargent, Zhou and Stroll, so kind of usual suspects. Piastri was unfortunate, I think, to be down there. And then in Q2, Alonso sticks at P1 all of a sudden, and I was like, hang on a second, this Aston Martin was nowhere in FP3. It was good, especially in race sims in FP2, but FP3 this morning, it wasn't very good. They were like 8, 9 tenths off the pace. Ferrari again was quickest and were certainly firm favourites for pole position. Alonso was briefly P1 and then that quickly went away. There was also this big instance, which I think Snowder made a mistake maybe on his second run in qualifying in Q2 here, but his first incident, or first lap, was heavily impeded by Verstappen. It's, you know, having seen the footage of this, I couldn't find any video of it, unfortunately, but it seems to me a pretty slam-dunk incident. Verstappen just didn't get out of the way. I don't know what it is about Verstappen at Singapore, but like every year he just has a stinker. I don't know what it is. Something about the air or something just makes Verstappen go donkey mode for some reason, and he had an absolute shocker today. So, you know, so he gets in Snowder's way, his own, not his teammate, you know, but he's an AlphaTauri, so they're meant to help each other out. Snowder's lap gets ruined, and the Red Bulls weren't even fast, right? Verstappen was frustrated, Perez was frustrated. They just didn't have the pace. Like, they weren't generating the downforce they needed. The car setup didn't seem to be working well, and they were P10, P11. They needed to improve drastically, already Verstappen's under investigation, and then Liam Lawson comes in the other AlphaTauri, a driver who I don't believe has ever driven around here, Singapore, one of the hardest circuits historically for rookies. He comes in and sticks a lap 7,000ths of a second ahead of Verstappen and knocks out both Red Bulls. Unbelievable scenes, especially in the sister Red Bull team. So, yeah, Lawson, I mean, that single quali lap alone secures Lawson's spot on the grid next season, as far as I'm concerned, unless he has a shocker from now to the end. Like, Lawson's he's a perfect opportunity for him with Ricciardo out, unfortunately for Ricciardo, but, Lawson's doing what he needed to do, and Verstappen, understandably, was absolutely furious, right, about what's gone on with Red Bull. His win streak looks to now be over. Like, it's possible, Red Bull could pull a masterclass, maybe it's Crashgate version 2, I don't know, but, imagining Verstappen's going to win from where he's going to start tomorrow, even if he does start P11, and there's loads of potential penalties and infringements coming Verstappen's way anyway, some of which look like kind of slam dunk penalties to me. So P14 maybe for Verstappen, I don't know. He's won from P14 before, but that was at Spa, and that was with a car that looked much better on that occasion than it does in Singapore, and overtaking here isn't easy either. So incredibly enough, the only team with 2 drivers through to Q3 was... So incredibly enough, the only teams with 2 drivers through to Q3 were Ferrari, Mercedes, and Haas somehow, with Magnussen and Hulkenberg making it, Ocon and Lawson ahead of Verstappen, Gasly, Perez, Albon, and then Tsunoda couldn't set a time. So absolute madness. And Verstappen, right, I mean, this is what he said on the radio. Don't know if you saw that. That was absolutely shocking experience, awful experience. Verstappen was not a happy man, and it goes to show like what level of like the level that Max is operating on, that one frustrating weekend after winning 10 in a row is deeply frustrating, but it will be for Red Bull, right? This seems to be their chance of the perfect season. Not out the window, you can't count them out, you never know, but this would be like Verstappen's best ever drive if he wins there tomorrow with the car they have. I mean, Parc Fermé conditions are in place. They might still be really good in race trim, and that's definitely possible. But unless there are extenuating circumstances like safety cars, making up massive grounds is going to be a real challenge for Verstappen, I believe, tomorrow. There could be rain as well, could throw a spanner in the works. Q3 begins, and Sainz, man, I was talking to you guys about Sainz yesterday. This guy is on it. He is looking the most comfortable in that Ferrari right now that he's ever felt. And Leclerc, who's a great driver around here, around Singapore, and obviously a great qualifier, Sainz has had his number now for a couple of weeks in a row. And yes, there was questionable defending in Monza, but you've got to tip your hat to Sainz. Russell, though, to me was the standout here, because Hamilton was like 4/10 or so off pole position, and we know Hamilton's, arguably the best qualifier of all time, probably Ayrton Senna to be fair, but Hamilton's got the most pole positions, 104. Russell is back to his Mr. Saturday business here, because that lap was mesmerising. That middle sector, the final sector, was right on the money as well, and was only a few hundreds off of Carlos Sainz in pole. Split the 2 Ferraris though. I mean, look at that. Leclerc was 800ths off Sainz. Russell split them. Then Norris, then Hamilton, then Magnussen of the Haas, Alonso, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Lawson. I mean, an absolutely crazy session here. There was talk from Toto as well about the tyre allocation and stuff that was compromising Hamilton, so he reckons he's going to be very strong tomorrow. And, well, who knows what the Ferrari tyre dig is going to be like. It's definitely possible that Russell is in with a shout for the victory tomorrow. But Verstappen's response was as follows: I thought it would be tough to put it on pole, but I didn't expect it to be that bad. Then the car felt better in FP3. We made some changes. It'll be a tough, long afternoon tomorrow. But, important to find out why it went wrong. And this is now the question. I know that you guys in the comment section below were saying, as I was saying, it's too early to say whether the new technical directive has done anything. And Singapore is a circuit where historically it can throw up some surprises to the top teams. Mercedes 2015, Mercedes 2019, both struggled around this track despite winning most things for the rest of the season. So it can be a circuit that throws up dominant cars. But the Red Bull this year has been good everywhere. It doesn't matter what circuit it is. Street track, non-street track, high speed, low speed corners, medium speed, like high downforce, low downforce, doesn't matter. The Red Bull's good everywhere. At least it was so far. Turn up to Singapore. Okay, the track isn't even that bumpy, to be honest. The Mercedes tends to struggle when it's bumpy, and they've smoothened out the track surface. So, they clearly knew with their simulations it wasn't going to be that good this weekend. They said going into the weekend that this was where they were most concerned about losing. But you do have to wonder whether the technical directive has played a part in this. I mean, the question has to be raised now, right? After one day, you think, all right, maybe they get their act together for Saturday. But after 2 days in a row of being way off the pace, it does raise the question. And as I say, Verstappen's day is likely to get worse. I believe right around now when I'm recording this, he is going to the stewards about multiple penalties he might potentially get. As I'm saying, I think he's going to be at least P14, and it might be worse than that, I don't know, because there was an incident where he was at the end of the pit lane and he just sat there for like 18 seconds and blocked both Mercedes. I don't exactly know what the penalty for that would be, but it was noted by the stewards. The Sonoda thing, there's another one like impeding as well in Q1 between turn 17 18. So yeah, Verstappen could be in for a hard time here. And this is as Brad Philpott says, you know, Red Bull have been good everywhere, and they bring in this technical directive for the flexible bodywork and those some like mechanisms that were being used to counteract the effect of TD39 last year. And all of a sudden, Red Bull have kind of fallen off. So maybe Singapore's just a weird track, right? And maybe come next time out in, what is it, we're going to Suzuka, maybe Red Bull are back on top by 5-6 tenths. And who knows what could happen in tomorrow's race. But it feels incredibly unlikely that Verstappen's win streak continues. And, you know, surely someone else has to win now. There's no way that the win streak doesn't come to an end, you would think, as it stands. And if tomorrow also turns out to be a hard time for Red Bull, then, you know, questions will be turned to, first of all, who actually wins the race tomorrow? Because between Ferrari or Mercedes or even Lando could be in the mix as well, there's a lot to be said on strategy at the front of the field. If Verstappen can make good progress, who knows? A safety car could go his way and all of a sudden it's wide open for him to potentially win. But if that doesn't happen, then more than likely we're going to get a different winner. And then people will wonder, all right, come Suzuka, what's going to happen to Red Bull? Was it a Singapore-specific circumstance, especially in qualifying, or is this going to be a slightly more consistent trend? So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Even Christian Horner here saying that they're confused why the car isn't responding to the changes they've made. So yeah, lots more I'm sure to say on this in the coming days and in the comment section below. Very much intrigued to your thoughts. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.